What we're going to do today is we're going to be splicing back in a factory setup so that way I can run the correct adapter to an aftermarket radio. This was the incorrect way to do it. This is where you just cut the factory harness and then wire nut on some clips to get to the new aftermarket head unit, which is the wrong way to do it. So now what we're going to be doing is going back in and soldering these on so that way we can run the correct adapter. Okay, the first step you're going to want to do is undo a couple of screws. There's one right here next to your headlight switch, two up here, one right there, one right there, and then you're going to have one more over here next to your cigarette lighter. So go ahead and undo all those, and then you can pop this piece out too. This just held in with some clips here. Okay, once you get all four of those screws out and the clip on the bottom, you're going to want to just carefully wiggle this piece out. There's a couple of clips here on the bottom that are holding it in. So 1, 2, 3, 4 clips here, and then over by the radio side there's 2 more clips there. And then a couple more around the steering column that you're popping off. Just be careful with it, it's old plastic. Factory, it'll look something similar to this, where you've got a screw on each side holding it in with a bracket, and this will be stock setup. You're going to want to undo both these screws and then go ahead and pull this forward. If you've got an aftermarket setup, it'll be a little bit different. I'll go ahead and run over that. Market setup, you're going to have a bracket kind of like this that maybe will screw into the sides with a combination of these pieces that actually slide around the radio, and then these tabs get bent out to hold it onto that front bracket if you have an aftermarket setup. Either way, what you're going to do is you're going to pull out your radio and then go ahead and disconnect it from the back. I'll see if I can find a factory setup, but the aftermarket ones is generally just kind of has a push in. You can pop it out and you'll get pins like that. If you have other things connected, sometimes you'll have an amp hooked into these or audio in. Here's another one that's got a ground wire. Your antenna will go into that larger one there. Factory setup, it'll look something like this when you pull it out. You'll have an antenna coming into one side that you can disconnect. That goes to your antenna. And then you'll have another big connector here that you can just squeeze and pop apart like that. The aftermarket head unit that was run in this Jeep for a while. As you can see, this is where the antenna goes, and then when this was spliced in like this, could then plug in here. This one also had an amp hooked into it for subwoofers, but that already got removed. Now what I would like to do is wire this back in. Colors aren't matching up perfectly, which makes me think that at some point, probably throughout the years, Jeep changed the color wiring on these, so we can either do a couple things. I'll see if I can find a wiring diagram with different colors, or I can find the original one that got put in here and see how it needs to be connected in. And then we'll go from there. I'll see if I can find the original one because these colors aren't perfectly matching up. So I'll see if I can make a diagram to figure it out. On the original one, that's this one here on the left, and this matches this one because this is the one that I originally chopped out of this Jeep. And then this is the one from a donor Jeep that I think was a 94, maybe 95 year, where this one's out of the 93. So I'll go ahead and write down and the differences, but they must have changed, right? So pink has gone to red, little things like that. So I'll write out all the patterns that need to be connected. That way we can figure out where we need to splice wires in. The next step on our head unit project is making one of these connectors fit back into the Jeep. Ended up having the one that I had, wasn't the right one, went out and grabbed another one out of a 96, so it had this piece, but the wiring colors are what I need. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually pull all these out. They pop out of here, so I can solder them one at a time and then I'll feed them back in. They pop out of here. I was trying to use a screwdriver, but that didn't work, so I ended up using this pick. These are street sweeper blades. You can find them in parking lots when you're walking around. You start to pick them up, and then I just ground it down so it fits down into here. A little piece of plastic, but if you can get it up just right, they'll slide right out the back. So I'm going to be remaking it this way. It's the same way, but I'll be soldering them into the Jeep. So I'm going to pop all these out so that way I've got them ready to go, and then I can solder them one at a time into the Jeep. Okay, so once you get all those guys out, you'll have a nice pile of wires. We can go ahead and get all these stripped and cleaned. Then I'll get some shrink wrap ready for them. And these colors now all match the colors in the Jeep. So let's go ahead and jump over there and get those soldered in. This is the new one from this is Amazon shrink tubing. This wire fee working much better. I'm gonna go ahead and do one more just to make sure that we've got it down. Then I picked up a heat gun so we don't have to use the lighter. This is just the Wagner off of Amazon. Looks pretty good. Okay, so I think we're ready to start trying the ones in the car. Okay, so here's all our wires coming out that we're going to match to. Here's some of the wrapping. I'm just going to trim this back. Get that out of the way. Straighten these guys out a little bit. Alright, I'm going to go grab all those wires and come back. Okay, that looks pretty good. A little bit long, but we can tuck it back in there. There's plenty of room. So, one down and 11 more to go. Got all of these ends soldered in and heat shrinked on. Now I'm going through and matching the harness to the new harness and pushing these in to match the colors of where they need to be. Probably could have gone a little bit shorter on this harness and been alright, but this will work. Okay, so I got all these plugged back in. So theoretically I should be able to take this and plug it back into the back of the stock radio, and that should work with a ground, of course.